And so to continue our discussion on the African American religion, and is there a way to tie it into these ideas and thoughts of UFOs or the supernatural being not paranormal, but super science or even science that we can see today?
I think one has to understand these notions again of UFOs and the miraculous, magic, what some might call the paranormal, in the context of African American experience. And it's impossible to make sense of any of that without taking into account white racial terror or the history of white racial terror. And again, as you very well know, when I use that term, I'm talking about all kinds of things. I'm talking about a very violent system of slavery that not just owned people, but dehumanized them or refused to see them as human, but also violated them in every psychological and emotional way through physical brutality, rape, and I do mean of men and women and children. But I'm also talking about things like 100 years of lynching that start right around Reconstruction, after 1865, primarily, when slavery was supposedly abolished. And so these practices arise because now that slavery is no longer a system that allows white people to have unfettered access to and control over Black bodies, then there has to be these other mechanisms that are used now to continue white domination or white supremacy, again, which I want to understand as religious. Again, this idea of white people being centered to the universe, being immanent in America is not simply economic, not even primarily economic. These are religious ideas and practices because whiteness is seen as ultimate in the cosmos. And so these practices of needing to control Black bodies through violent practices like lynching are necessary for the very existence of whiteness and white identity. It doesn't exist without this object other to which it is tethered, this Black object against which it can project all kinds of negative ideas. Blackness is evil, it's dirty, but also constitute its own self. Whiteness is pure, whiteness is ultimate, whiteness is good, and so on. So the flip side of that, to your question, is what Charles Long was going to call counter-signification or counter-creative signification. How African Americans then took some of these same ideas of the paranormal, magic, and so on, and recast them such that they were able to reconstitute their own identity. So think about this, Dwayne. If in the world your reality is so overdetermined by white racial terror and by ideas and representations in every institution, every form of entertainment, that Blackness is inferior, then it makes sense to rethink Black origins and cast it outward to the cosmos. Think about that for a moment. Then we can reimagine Black origins as existing or originating on places like Mars and Venus, like you find in some traditions. Or for Sun Ra, the planet Saturn is significant, not just for him, but for African Americans. For the Nation of Islam, Mars and Venus are significant, but so is this UFO, right? Called the mother wheel, because this UFO actually is the greatest technology the world has ever known. So think about that. The world says Black people are inferior, right? That they have no science, they have no technology, they have no creativity. All they have is spirit, which is a sort of tangential half gesture toward Black people being partially human, but in a childlike state of development. In other words, in the evolutionary sense, that Black people's humanity is still sort of akin or stuck in the early stages of human development. And here comes the Nation of Islam and these other traditions saying that the Black people have this technology that even NASA can't copy. right? Think about how that might mean in terms of symbolically allowing African Americans the ability to rethink the meaning of Blackness, to rethink the meaning of Black origins that render slavery and lynching and Jim Crow and philosophies of Black inferiority that are found in the entire white Western canon of continental philosophy and analytic philosophy, right? And to render all of that irrelevant by saying, y'all don't really know us, right? We're not even from here. We're from out in the cosmos. You're a baby, right? When it comes to the universe, we're much older, much more vast than you are. And maybe that's why you even oppressed us and killed us, right? And so think about how in these religious traditions, like the United Nubian Nation of Moors, and there's so many of them, or even in African American Christian traditions, how such thinking about the origins of Blackness outside of the social and the historical might allow them then to make sense of a world or to give ultimate meaning to themselves in a world that was so absurd. Because, I mean, what sense does it make that people are murdered and killed just because they're Black, or lynched, or babies, cut out of a mother and stomped on, right? Who can make sense of that kind of reality? And these are things that actually happened. But the paranormal, which I argue actually might point to something real, a real experience, at least in the world, or casting vision outward to the cosmos and saying we come from out there, is a way of sort of reorienting Black existence and the meaning of Black bodies over against a history of white racial terror that allows them then to live in this world and to engage in this world. So rather than see this stuff as folly, like some people do, I argue it's much more complicated than that. And to see these kind of ideas as folly is a limitation of the thinker and the scholar, rather than the folks who come up with these ideas in these religious traditions. I totally see what they're doing, and it's totally creative and complicated, and it's the failure of the scholar not to connect this to concrete experience in the world.